Welcome back to Talk of the Town. With me now is Maria Welch from the Float Factor. Maria, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to be learning about flotation therapy today. This is something that I've heard a little bit about. It's gotten a lot of media attention. It's been on the Today Show, Dr. Oz, ESPN, New York Times, a lot of coverage. Is this something, is float therapy, first of all, tell us a little bit about what it is, and is it something that's a new concept?
Actually, it was first invented in the early 1950s by a neuroscientist, and he was trying to create an environment where he was limiting sensory input, and he discovered that it had all these benefits, and so he started doing further research into what was then called sensory deprivation, and he actually developed the first commercial tank in the 1970s. But floating kind of went out of favor for a couple of decades, but now it's experiencing a huge resurgence all over the country. New float centers are opening everywhere.
And why do you think that is? Why do you think that interest, why have we had this resurgence in interest in floating again?
I think there's a couple of main reasons. I think people are just incredibly sensory overloaded right now, having to constantly monitor and check their devices, and it's like there's nowhere to get away from it. And they're finding that an hour in the float tank really gives them this great space to just completely unplug and disconnect. And people are really finding that's extremely beneficial for them. And it kind of gives them a fresh perspective, you know, more clarity, more peace of mind when they come out, which is great. And also people are really looking for alternative methods to deal with stress and anxiety and chronic pain. And there is research to show that floating does lower stress hormone levels. It helps reduce pain. A lot of doctors are trying to get patients off of pain medications, and we're actually getting quite a few referrals from physicians for that.
I think anytime we can just take a little vacation and just be human beings rather than human doings,
yes,
I think that's really, really important. So
exactly.
How is floating in a floating pod different from floating just in water in general, like a swimming pool or something?
Yes, so when you float in this pool or even in the ocean, you still have to expend some effort to kind of keep yourself up. Our pods have 1,000 pounds of Epsom salt, which is about like putting 250 pounds of Epsom salt in your bathtub. So it keeps you extremely buoyant. So you actually don't have to do anything. It's just all about just laying there doing nothing. And in fact, many of our clients are so relaxed that they fall asleep in the pods.
Wow.
And then the other thing is the water is heated to skin temperature. Mm-hmm. So it's warmer than a pool, but not as warm as like a hot tub. So this produces an environment where you basically don't feel any temperature sensation, and you really don't feel your body after a while. So you're kind of just floating in space. And in addition, you can turn off the lights and the music, which are options, and that will even further limit the sensory input that you're getting.
How big are these floating pods? I mean, they must be pretty big to accommodate 1,000 pounds of Epsom salt. They're
actually used by major sports teams. So the New England Patriots have the same pods that we have, so they will accommodate a large football player. They're about 7.5 feet by about 4.5 feet wide.
Wow.
Interior dimensions. So they're pretty good. They have about 200 gallons of water in them. But they're only about that deep.
Oh, wow.
So you can't drown in them.
Okay, but even if you still fit 1,000 pounds of Epsom salt. That's incredible.
Yeah,
That's
so
incredible.
It's all dissolved in there. Yeah.
So we've talked a little bit about some of the benefits. You've touched on that a little bit about, reducing stress, that sort of thing. Are there any other benefits to this?
Well, there are definitely, a couple of main benefits. So one of the things that happens is your brain actually spends about 80 to 90% of its energy managing sensory input and managing your body in gravity. So we're not like falling over, but we don't really think about that.
Right.
But our brain is always monitoring where we are in space. So in a float pod, you have none of that.
Yeah.
So your brain is actually freed up to do all of this other stuff. So you can get to these higher states of consciousness. You can get extremely relaxed. You can be more creative. You can learn. So there's a lot of different possibilities that happen with your brain. And then physically, you're actually totally supported. So there's no pressure or stress on your muscles, your joints, your bones. So all the oxygen and nutrients and blood can flow freely, which is great for healing and recovery, reducing pain, and then all the Epsom salt, of course, is another benefit that's well known for pain relief.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love to talk with you a little bit more about this, but unfortunately we're out of time. But I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today and giving me the education. about this. So Maria Welch from the Float Factor. We talked about flotation therapy a little bit today. Log on to their website, give her a call, and check it out. Thanks so much for coming on the show
Thanks
today.
for having me.
Don't go away. There's more Talk of the Town coming up right after.